All right, everyone, welcome to the world of VLANs. We've discussed VLANs in the past, and I've told you that VLANs are extremely important, right? In a real world scenario, we tend to procrastinate in creating VLANs because, I don't know, right? We have certain companies that buy unmanaged switches, bad companies. Why? Don't do that. Slap on the hand. All right, you want to buy managed switches, so you can create these VLANs. Now, what exactly is a VLAN? All it is just a logical portion of your network. You're segmenting logically, meaning like this drawing back here, right? Let's say this switch over here will be the HR department, and then this switch over here will be the finance department. And this will be, I like to match up my IPs with my VLAN, so this will be VLAN 20 and this will be VLAN 10. What happens here, you know how they say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas? Well, what happens in the VLAN stays in the VLAN. All right? Nothing's going to go outside. So if you have a printer within that department, if you're doing things in that department, remember, because we're doing CSMA CD, right? We're using Ethernet. So that noise, we still have broadcast. But since we're breaking up broadcast domains, at layer 2, they're not going to hear that noise that's going on in this department right here. You're not going to hear it. Whatever happens in here, and let me move this a little bit more. See if I can move more this way. Sorry to give you my back here. All right. But whatever happens in this particular VLAN here is not going to bother this VLAN over here. You can have 2 DHCP servers, different VLANs. It's just going to be for that particular broadcast domain. If you want to go outside your VLAN, now this router comes into effect, right? Now the router comes into effect because that's where your inter-VLAN communications comes in, okay? But for now, yes, create your VLANs. You logically segment your VLANs. Now, a question I get asked quite often, he'll ask, do we break up the switch into different VLANs? Or is it a VLAN per switch? It's completely up to you and the size of your network. If it's a small company, you may want to have, they have ports 1 through 8, then 9, 10, 11, 12, then there's, then 9 through 16, then 17 to 24, whatever. You can break them up however you want, okay? And, this is VLAN whatever. There's always leave room for VLAN 1 if that's you're going to maintain that as your native VLAN. Remember that. If you maintain, VLAN 1 exists on all switches. And VLAN 1 is your native VLAN, your admin VLAN, your management VLAN. It goes by many names. All right? But that's the one that the IT personnel actually accesses to do whatever it is that they need to do. Nobody else should have access to that particular VLAN. And that's where your access lists come in. Future lesson, right? In this course. But no, you create your VLANs however you want to. Like in a school, it will be a VLAN per classroom, right? It could be a VLAN per department. It doesn't really, it matters. It matters depend on the size of your company. Like I said, small company, if you have 5 people in your company, really, it's not that big of a deal, then you may not want to do VLANs. Or maybe you have a graphic arts company, or you're using a surveying company that you're throwing out AutoCAD drawings. Maybe the people that do the AutoCAD can be in their own VLAN and everybody else on another VLAN, because the AutoCAD, those drawings going through the network will take up a lot of bandwidth, right? They're very huge packets, right? Those file sizes are huge. So you may want to separate it that way. So it's completely up to you. The great things about VLANs is, let's say, okay, we got HR and we got finance, right? We got these 2 different VLANs here. But the great thing about that is, let's say we run out of room in the accounting department. But there's only like 3 or 4 people in HR. But there's so many people in accounting, we have nowhere to put you in this particular department. We got to sit you somewhere else until we make room for you. And unfortunately, sometimes that's because we're downsizing. But let's hope that's not the case. Let's hope that the company is flourishing and growing, that we need to knock down a wall and put more cubicles and what have you. But let's say you have so many accounts over here that they don't fit. So we can sit you on another switch in another department. We can put you in the freaking basement if we had to. okay? But as long as you're part of that particular VLAN, you'll have access to that information. You're part of the accounting VLAN. So you'll see what the accounting VLAN sees. And that's what's so great about it. You don't have the limitation, the physical limitation, of, hey, you have to be within that department. You can be anywhere. As long as you're part of that VLAN, hey, you can access that information. So it is extremely important for security purposes, for bandwidth, okay, conserving bandwidth, keeping information within or problems within your particular VLAN. It is just organization, keeping track of everything. Administratively, VLANs are great. For your certifications, they will ask you things like this. What are the benefits of using VLANs? Hey, security would be one. Organization would be another. Administration would be another. These are 3 key points that you can say, hey, this is the reason why we want to do VLANs. And not to have the physical limitation, because VLANs are logical segmentations. Key. Logical segmentations of local area networks. So each switch can be a different VLAN, or you can do, we have a lab here that once we learn how to do this, it's called a summary lab. We learn how to summarize and actually use that summary address to reduce the routing tables once we learn how to use the VLANs. When you can create each port, make it a different VLAN. I mean, I don't know why would you, but you could if you wanted to. And you can even use the same IP address in every port. They wouldn't conflict with each other because you're breaking up broadcast at layer 2. Now, this is the question, obviously, that comes to everybody's mind, or it should come to your mind. You like saying, hey, lads, you have 2 different networks. You have the 10 network over there, you have the 20 network over here, but you only have one physical interface on that router. How are people supposed to get out? Let's say you have the internet somewhere over here, right? How are people supposed to get out to the internet? Everybody has to have their individual gateway within their own subnet. And you're absolutely correct. Well, this is something called a router on a stick, which you'll learn when we do the inter-VLANs. All right? Because you would do inter-VLAN routing, and you would do that based on sub-interfaces. That's where we start creating sub-interfaces on the router. Will you see this in your exam? Yes, you will. Will they ask you questions? What does it take to create something like this to make it work? Yes, you will. It'll probably be in the form of a multiple choice question. You won't actually have to do it yourself, but they'll give you the commands and the prompts. That's why it's very important to know the navigation of the switch, which we did, all right, and putting administration commands and all that stuff. All right, but now it comes time to start learning how to create the VLANs, how to assign the VLANs, all right? And again, you can make the whole switch one particular VLAN, or you can make, every port a different VLAN. However you do it, it's completely up to your network. Again, school environments that I'm most familiar with, every classroom is a VLAN, and then for the student sides and for the administration side, if the departments are really that big or that intense where data is flowing back and forth, then you can separate through VLANs. I mean, you could, because each department will have their own switch, so you can actually put them in different VLANs if you wanted to. Just remember, a lot of these locations, right, these schools or businesses like to share printers. So if you are going to be using a shared printer and you have to go across multiple VLANs, then the problem, not problem, but the thing is, if this computer on VLAN 10 wants to talk to a computer on VLAN 20, remember, the information will not flow straight across. The information will go to the router will make the routing decision and then come back down. That's what you need to consider as well. So these are VLANs, and yes, they are important. They should be required, okay, in major infrastructures. Telecommunications uses VLANs. All right, major companies uses VLANs. Certain schools have come to conclusion, light bulb turned on and said, hey, it's best if we use VLANs. And why is that? Because, again, the same analogy we used in the previous lesson. If I create a DHCP server on the same VLAN that you're in, then I'm going to be assigning you IP addresses. And then there's going to be an issue with the DHCP server from the school. The most simplest example I can give you. So you definitely want to break up those segments, right, logically, for that better organization, better security, better administration, all these things. All right, so VLANs, yes, are extremely important, and we're going to start learning how to configure the VLANs and the type of ports that VLANs sit on and the type of ports that the other VLANs, other than the native VLAN, must go through. I'll see you in the next lesson.